sitting on my doorstep, the people's passing by. They're coming back from getting wrecked, everybody's high. Saturday night, what a bitch, laying on the lawn. The morning comes to bring the switch after the buzz is gone.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Addictions, the podcast about addictions. I'm your host, David Wagner. On today's show, we are speaking with a really good friend of mine about her addiction. She wanted to remain anonymous, so we're just going to be calling her Diane. Since she has started herself on the path to recovery from heroin and methamphetamine, she's been having a really rough time, losing friends who were supposed to always have her back or be there for her, coupled with the loss of her boyfriend due to a possibly drug-related death. She's just been having a really hard time and really wanted to share her story with you, the listeners. But before we jump right in and listen to my discussion with Diane, I want to thank you all who have already donated through our new PayPal donation portal. And if you do want to help support the show by making a donation of any size, check out www.paypal.me/theaddictionspodcast. From there, you can make one-time donations of any size, and trust me, every penny helps. Also, if you've missed any of the previous episodes of the show, you can find them all on our website, which is www.addictionspodcast.wordpress.com. And from there, you can also check out my blog and all kinds of other crap. I also have the PayPal donation link set up there as well. Now, on with the show. On today's episode, I have a very special guest. Her name is Diane, and she's actually chosen to remain anonymous, but we're just going to call her Diane. She's actually been a very good friend of mine. I recently got to meet her, and we actually became really fast friends. And she's struggled with addiction to a couple of different substances. There's been some issues with former friends that look down on her for being sober now, which to me that's just total bullshit, and I guess I'll start off by asking you, Diane, when did all the problems with addiction start?
About 5 years ago.
Yeah. Now, what was it exactly that got the ball rolling with the addictions?
The people I hung out with.
Yeah. That's not uncommon, I mean, when I look back at my own issues, it was definitely the crowd that I was hanging out with, I mean, I was prescribed this stuff too, but there was enabling going on through other people, my significant other. We enabled each other, I'm
right.
sure you know how that goes.
Oh, yeah.
What was it that clicked in your mind, that made you decide to want to get clean from it all?
After my boyfriend committed suicide.
It'd be a real eye-opener for me, and I can only imagine what you must be going through, And first of all, I really want to thank you for doing this, because I know it can be difficult to talk about these things. So what substances were the main issues for you?
Meth and heroin.
Meth and heroin. Now, were you using those things at the same time?
Yep.
Yeah, so it's a combination.
Yep.
Did you have any issues with finding resources to get sober, to get clean, to get the help that you wanted?
No, on December 7th, I called my brother and crying and decided that I wanted to get sober.
Yeah. I feel like we all reach a breaking point. Some people call it rock bottom, but that's a different point for everybody.
That's
right?
when I did. I hit rock bottom. I started shooting up.
Yeah. That's a big issue. Once you cross that bridge to heroin, it's either gonna lead you to the grave, to prison, or both. I mean,
because I started doing speedballs.
Yeah, and that's really dangerous. Mm-hmm. It's a really dangerous combination. How frequent was your use? Was it daily?
Every day.
Yeah, and that can become an expensive issue too.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was buying just prescription pills on the street, and spending 80% of my paycheck every week, ignoring bills, and that caused issues all on its own.
Right, and I never had to start paying for the stuff until after he died because he was
taking care of it all.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was an everyday user as well.
Mm-hmm, we both were.
It's really unfortunate. And again, I'm sorry for your loss. I don't want to poke and prod there too much because I know it's a sensitive issue. So we'll just stay away from that. You got on Suboxone.
Yep.
For the opioid stuff. Now, as far as quitting the meth, was that difficult?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I went through withdrawals. You go through withdrawals. I went through withdrawals just like I did with the heroin.
Yeah. What were the withdrawals from the methamphetamine like? The same kind of symptoms?
Like the leg cramps, the back aches, throwing up, diarrhea.
Did you have like a lot of people get like that restless leg syndrome?
Yeah.
Where you,
and Charlie horses and everything.
Yeah. Trouble sleeping at night?
Yep. And my legs would turn black and blue from the Charlie horses and stuff.
Wow. That's unreal. Man.
But I was doing pills too, but not as often as I was doing the other.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people who use heroin, when they can't find heroin, they find other stuff, That's like, I couldn't get into a program for Suboxone, so what I did was bought Suboxone from other heroin addicts. They would use the Suboxone when they can't find the heroin. When they find the heroin, then they just sell their Suboxone.
Right.
So that's what I was doing. And, it's right here in Montcalm County, it's just so difficult to get into the one doctor that I know of that prescribes Suboxone. There's a limited number of patients that they can have. So, what I did was illegal, but it's gotten me to where I am now.
Right.
And that's the biggest thing. And you're currently still using Suboxone.
Yep.
So you're in recovery.
Right.
Yeah, which is great. And I totally commend you for
December.
that. Since December.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Just keep at it, keep your eyes on the prize is the big thing. Because it's hard, and it's difficult to explain to people how difficult it really is.
It is.
To go through a full-blown withdrawal without anything is...
I was in bed for 7 days.
Pure
sick.
hell.
And sometimes you still get the withdrawals.
Yeah. Well, my ex-girlfriend, she tried to go through the Vivitrol, which is a shot that you get once a month.
Oh, I've never heard of that.
It's relatively new, but she went in to get the shot, and she did everything properly. You're supposed to wait until you're in full-blown withdrawal, and then you go in and they give you the Vivitrol shot, and it lasts a month. And you go in and get another. I don't know the fine details of it, so don't quote me on that, listeners, but the Vivitrol shot made her sicker than what she would have been if she would have went through just the withdrawals. I don't know if she's unique in that respect, because I've talked to other people who have done the Vivitrol route and they've had no problems. They say, yeah, the first week or so you're gonna feel sick, but after that, once your body kind of acclimates or gets used to it, mm-hmm. then it's kind of smooth sailing. But everybody's different, and the recovery options that work for one person might not work as well for another person.
Right.
It's crazy because what I'm still going through is the pause thing, the post-acute withdrawal syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
Like after you've gone through the basic recovery portion, you have high anxiety and depression, and
I'm still going through all that.
Those symptoms can last up to several months. So it's important to kind of stay vigilant. And there's medications out there for the anxiety and stuff, like Xanax and Klonopin, other benzos and stuff. But the problem with those is that they can also become addicting too. And that can be a whole other can of worms,
like the Xannies?
Yeah, definitely, with the Xanax. But they do work for the anxiety. So it's kind of a really tricky balancing act. And it's something needs to change, because it is so difficult. It's just not easy, and I try to make that known through this podcast how difficult going through these withdrawals and this kind of shit is. Now, how long have you been in recovery? Since December?
December 7th. And I did relapse one time.
Yeah.
Since then.
I tried to quit on my own without any help, no medication help or anything. I tried to quit 5, 6, 7 times probably by just lowering my hydrocodone dose.
Right.
But all it takes is one bad day, and then you're like, well, fuck it, I'm going to take 5 of these Norco 10s and get high.
Right. And in Montcalm County, it's so easy to find the stuff that you want.
It's everywhere. It's everywhere. Mm-hmm. I've talked to people, who have... A lot of people, they need to pull like a geographic and move somewhere else. One of my recent guests, Amy Dresner, she her parents shipped her off to New Mexico for rehab, and she told me that within like 3 or 4 days of being there, she was hooking up with methamphetamine users and stuff, and just about wherever you go, it seems. It's like we know as addicts, we can kind of tell the people who are holding or, who have shit to get rid of, It's like a sixth sense almost. Not a good sixth sense, but nonetheless, it's definitely something there.
But when you're using and selling, you know who to go to when you need it.
Exactly, yeah. A lot of people think it's all in the mind, but a lot of the chemical hooks that these drugs have are biological and physiological, and it's more than just psychological temptation. It's
because I felt like I could not function without being high.
Exactly. After my prescription got cut off, I was on prescription opioids for 4 years, but after that got cut off by my doctor, and I had no place to turn, I couldn't afford to take time off work, to detox.
Right.
So I kept buying opioids on the street, morphine, methadone, whatever I could find, so that I could function, so that I could keep going to work and keep my job, because if I lost my job, I would lose my ability to pay rent, to pay my bills, and then I'd be in a world of shit beyond the world of shit I was already in, So it's like a domino effect. There's not a lot of strategy out there in respect to that, and we need more doctors that are more educated on the situation. The Suboxone doctor that I spoke with, she told me that in order to get a license to prescribe Suboxone or buprenorphine, all you have to do is go through an 8-hour course, which blew my mind.
Wow.
Anytime I'd find pills that I'd never taken before, like MS Contin was kind of a rarity. Orally, it's not very active. You want to shoot it up.
You shoot up or snort it?
I was pretty against shooting up, so I snorted it. But what I was going for there is I tried to research, the new stuff that I'd find. So I did a lot of reading about Suboxone, and when I went and talked to the Suboxone doctor, it was like I knew more about the shit than my doctor did. And that was kind of scary. It's like these doctors need to be more educated.
I just go in and talk to the Suboxone doctor, ask me how I'm doing, and I tell him, and okay, here's your prescription.
Yeah.
And that's it.
That's it.
You're in and out.
There's no real counseling that's going on there. We had an accident at the farm where I work at with my father, which I caused, and I suffer from PTSD from that. And with you having a significant other who passed on the way under those circumstances, I can definitely imagine that you're suffering from PTSD as well. So you throw PTSD on top of the addiction problems, and it's a whole nother situation it's compounded, and now it's even harder because you're going through all this emotional shit that is just super heavy,
And I started shooting up after that happened, just because I was doing it so much, because I have to think about what happened.
Exactly. Yeah.
I didn't have to deal with nothing.
Yeah. And that's what I did too. I noticed that I would only have panic attacks or anxiety attacks while I was at work if my father was at work with me.
Right.
As long as my dad wasn't at work with me on that day, like when he takes days off, I don't have the panic attacks because he's not there.
Right.
So it's kind of weird how that works, but it's just odd, the PTSD stuff, and that can be enough to throw you into relapse, having those bad days.
I can't even go out in public.
Yeah, I totally understand that.
At all, after all this has happened.
What I can say though is that, through talking about my own addiction and doing this podcast and stuff, it's almost therapeutic talking about it. I know it can be difficult for some of us. I had a guest a while back who said, the day that it stops hurting to talk about it would be the day that it's probably no longer therapeutic for me. Sometimes we have to go through that hurt and those feelings and head on before we can really conquer them. And unfortunately, some of us may never be able to fully get beyond that point where the post-traumatic stress is diminished enough that we can deal with life on a daily basis. I've looked into going to counseling for it, but with the insurance I have, it doesn't pay jack shit, especially with counseling.
I tried counseling after this happened,
I
just don't like it.
Yeah, I've talked to people who went through many different types of counseling, cognitive behavioral counseling, the EMDR or EDMR, whatever that is, talk therapy, group therapy, and a lot of people say the same thing. It only makes things worse in some cases, because it's stirring up that pot,
Mm-hmm. And they want to talk about things you don't want to talk about.
Exactly. And I feel like, when you're ready to talk about those things, that's when you should attempt counseling. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, plain and simple. But another barrier to that is the financial issue. Without proper insurance or decent insurance, because you can have medical insurance, that doesn't mean that it's going to pay anything.
Right.
And some of these counselors charge rates that are just
outrageous,
ungodly. Yeah, I can't afford it. Just can't afford it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's probably thousands, hundreds of thousands, probably millions of people who are in the same situation. And that's why the addiction thing is truly an epidemic. And it's not just in the U.S. here, it's worldwide.
Right.
Obviously, there are countries where things are a little easier, where they have universal health care and that type of thing is covered. But here in the States, it's very much like the Wild West, and it's almost become corrupt to a degree. It's like they're making money off the backs of these addicts,
mm-hmm.
which just pisses me right the fuck off, to be honest with you.
It does.
I've talked to people who have went through like halfway houses and sober living homes where the housing conditions are just garbage. They've got like 6 to 7 people in a room. They're violating a lot of housing regulations, like I said, and the conditions of living are shit. And as soon as the insurance stops paying, they throw these people right back out on the street. It just blows me the fuck away. I don't get it. I feel like all of that should be free. Instead of spending $600-700 billion on defense spending, maybe just a tiny fraction of that towards mental health treatment for people
Or these people that go to prison that live better than we do.
Exactly. I've seen that too. It's a really messed up situation. I wish you the best in your recovery, Diane. I really do.
Thank you.
Definitely. And I know that it can be hard, but I also know that if you keep your eyes on the prize, keep that tunnel vision and look forward to the day when you can finally say, that shit's behind me, I'm a new person, it's going to be so worth it. And that's how I try to look at it.
You find out who your friends are.
Yeah, you really do.
Like his homeboys were supposed to have my back and be there for me, and they've all turned their back on me.
Yeah.
All of them.
That doesn't make things any easier,
No, because the one was living with us when it happened.
Yeah.
And he was like family, and he turned his back on me.
To make fun of someone or to belittle someone because they're trying to better their life, that's fucked up.
Yeah. I hate them all.
It's not cool.
I do.
I kind of went through that too, to a degree. There were a few people that once I got out of the game, so to speak, they didn't want to have anything to do with me, which I guess in some ways is a good thing, because that could have led to temptation. But even people who weren't using, they just didn't want to be around me anymore, it seemed like, nobody really made fun of me over it or anything like that, but I couldn't imagine. It would just piss me off so much to see former friends making fun of me because I'm trying to get clean. That's crazy.
Yep. They've all turned their backs on me. The ones that are supposed to be family, the friends that are supposed to be family that you take in and help, and then they turn their back on you.
Yeah, and when we're dealing with this kind of shit, we need a strong support system. You need people in your life that are there for you, that you can call at any time of the day, and say, hey, I'm having some issues, I need to talk to somebody, or can you come over and just be with me? I can't be alone right now, or or whatever, because it's hard. That's all there is to it. And without a support system, it makes everything more difficult. I'm lucky enough that my parents are fully 100% behind me. I'm blessed in that respect. There's a history of addiction in my family on my mother's side, with alcohol and stuff like that. My addiction was my choice.
Right. Nobody makes you do.
In the long run.
The drugs.
No. But that doesn't make it any less of a disease either.
Right.
There's choice involved in a lot of different diseases, like diabetes and heart disease. If you choose to have a diet that ends you up there, then that was a choice, but it's still obviously a disease.
Right.
The whole addiction disease debate thing is we're looking at the wrong questions there. That's not what we should be talking about. Unfortunately, there's no single approach that's going to solve this thing for anyone. It needs to be a multi-pronged attack. You've got to have a plan and a strategy. And
even my family's turned their back on me. I haven't talked to him in 3 years. And then when this happened, when he committed suicide, now my one uncle stopped and that's it. The other ones, they drive right on by, never stop, nothing. Still don't talk to me because I embarrass them. But they're all alcoholics.
Yeah,
they all drink.
That's so hypocritical.
Drink and drive.
It really is. Now, in your family, is there, like with your parents, was there a history of addiction there?
Just the drinking.
Yeah.
That's all there was the drinking.
But still,
I went
still
from
addiction
that to doing this.
Yeah.
In August will be 3 years that I've talked to him.
It's like, one thing that I did want to say was that, like I tell all of my guests, no matter how far away they are, I did an interview with a kid out in Salt Lake City, Utah, who was addicted to methamphetamine, and he called me up and he said, I really love your podcast and it's inspired me to get sober. So I had him on the show and interviewed him and talked to him about stuff, and he's clean now. 3 months after the interview, I followed up with him and he's still clean. Seems to be doing good. He's actually organizing resources for other addicts now, which is awesome, So one thing that I'll say to you is that, if you ever need anything, feel free to give me a call.
Right.
As always, like I've told you before.
Right.
Me or my brother Nick, we're both here for you because we're all in this together.
It's the only one out of all my friends that still talk to me when I went through all this.
Yeah. Well, my brother, he's got his issues, but he's a good guy.
We've been friends for what?
Exactly.
15 years.
Long time. In the short time that I've known you, I can tell you're a good person. I can just kind of feel that vibe from people, Through getting my degree in communications, I've kind of developed a pretty good skill set for recognizing people and for who they are, I mean, I'm not perfect at it, obviously, but practice makes perfect, obviously. I can't thank you enough for doing this interview. It really means a lot to me, and I'm sure that, a lot of people are going to listen to this, and it's going to help a lot of people, definitely. Like I said, if you need anything, don't hesitate to ask or call, whatever, anything.
Right.
We'll definitely stay in touch and kind of see how things go. And, I wouldn't mind having you on the show again in the future, just to check up on things and see how stuff's going,
Okay.
I know your other friend there wanted to be on the show too, so I'll have to get in contact with her and see about getting her on the show too, because I know she wants to get her story out there as well. For me, it's the whole podcast thing. I almost look at it as part of my recovery. It's easy to talk about for me. I mean, it's a lot easier than it is for a lot of people, I've realized. I just feel so empowered when I do talk about my problem. But yeah, I want to thank you again for being on the show, and until next time, we'll cut it short here, and yeah, thanks again.
You're welcome.
Again, I want to thank Diane for coming on the show and sharing such a heartfelt story with us. I can imagine that it wasn't easy for her to do. I just really want to thank her very much for that. And I want to thank you listeners too as well. As always, without you guys listening, I wouldn't really have a show to do. And I hope that through doing this podcast, I can help a lot of people. Like I've said before, if I can only help one person by doing this, then to me it was well worth it. I just want to remind everybody that also you can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/addictionspodcast. And as always, never quit quitting.
Spent your money freely, then you smashed your only car. You aren't what you are really. You missed it by so damn far. Your head feels like it's in a blender, and you hate to see the dawn. Your stomach says return to sender after the buzz is gone. And Sundays you prayed Uncle John. You poisoned yourself last night. Mary slapped your friend Tom. You got in a hell of a fight. Monday comes and it's back to work. The weeks seem so damn long. The weekend's past, you're still a jerk. After the buzz is gone.